What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 61 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
Mike, we're already at 61 episodes, and we have already surpassed week 12 of the 2024 season. I think it's safe to say that it has been pretty disappointing for both of our teams, but maybe not as disappointing for the Raiders this week as it was for the 49ers. And I guess we can, just jump in right there. But I do see Fonzie in the chat. Fonzie says, "What's up, guys?" Fonzie, one of our most loyal viewers. Shout out to you. Whether the Niners are good or bad, he's in. Hashtag season over. All right, let's get into it. 49ers versus Packers recap. Mike, this was an ugly one, I think, from start to finish. I think there were points in the game where it got better. The 49ers sort of kept hanging around in the fourth quarter. They were down by 2 scores and then sort of around halftime, second half-ish. But I'm going to focus a little bit less on the game and maybe talk more about individual players. So I guess I'll start with the quarterback. So Brock Purdy did not play in this game, and you and I had zero knowledge that he was not going to play in the game. I think
last week's episode.
In last week's episode, I think maybe I might have mentioned, Brock Purdy's banged up shoulder, but for the most part, the expectation was that, Purdy was going to play. And so that's why Mike, picked the 49ers to win the game. But Mike texted me as soon as he heard that Brandon Allen was going to start and that Nick Bosa was going to be out, that he was going to, pick the Packers. So we both, predicted correctly. So it's not like the 49ers were, I'd say, expected by both of us to win this game, and maybe by a lot of fans once a lot of our most key players, I'd say Purdy might be the most important player on offense. Not the best player on offense, but maybe the most. He is the shoelace that holds the entire shoe together. You know what I mean? So once he was out, and Bosa is one of the best defensive players. I mean,
he's having a hell of a season.
He's been here and there, I'd say. Bosa,
right? I think he was. I don't know if he was leading the league, but I think he's really high up on the list on pressures on the season.
Yeah. So with Purdy out, as Fonzie says here, Dobbs, I think, should have started. I think Dobbs is the more talented backup quarterback, but for whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan trusts Brandon Allen a little bit more with the offense. And I have to say, I mean, the first quarter, Brandon Allen started off very slow, and the 49ers, I think, up to a certain point, had only gained 8 yards. It was the first quarter was ending, and it was only 8 yards to the Packers, 128 or 138. It was just bad. So obviously if Purdy's in there, he can't play defense, and it wouldn't change what the Packers were able to accomplish on offense. But yeah, so Brandon Allen wasn't as bad as I think that a lot of people were expecting him to be. I was expecting a lot less from Brandon Allen, and there were a lot of drops from receivers, but ultimately I think that Dobbs maybe would have given the 49ers a better chance to win this game, but Allen wasn't horrible besides the turnovers, and in terms of the interception, there was at least one interception. Let me look at his actual stats. Brandon Allen, 17 of 29, 199 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The interception went off of Debo's hands, and then I think there were a pair of fumbles. And one of the crazy parts about Brandon Allen in this game was just the fact that on his non-throwing hand, he had a broken finger, and it's I don't think it was as big of a factor as, maybe it would have seemed, but I think he probably still would have fumbled even had his finger not been broken. It just the way that those plays played out. But ultimately, that falls on Kyle Shanahan. That was his decision to play Brandon Allen, and he wasn't horrible. He wasn't horrible. So I think we can move on to, let's go to wide receivers. I think George Kittle had a very good game today. He had 6 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Kittle, I notice, excels with backup quarterbacks. I think Rob Stats Guerrera, mentioned how well Kittle does. And I don't know, I guess there is just something to like quarterbacks who don't have as much experience as like NFL vets tend to favor tight ends. So Kittle's able to, to feast off of that. Juwan Jennings, I think, played a good game today. 5 catches, 40 yards. I feel like he could be a little bit more involved in the offense, especially more involved than Deebo Samuel. Deebo had 1 catch for 21 yards, and that catch was like the most manufactured play ever. It was a lot like the play in the Super Bowl that they drew up for Juwan Jennings, where it was like a reverse and then a pitch, sort of flea flicker type of thing into a screen. But Deebo Samuel was on the receiving end of the screen, picked up 21 yards. And other than that, Deebo had 2 balls that hit him right in the hands, and they just bounced off his hands. And maybe something can be said about, I guess, the velocity coming in is different than what he expects, because Purdy normally, I guess, has a little bit less velocity on the ball than maybe Brandon Allen does. But I don't know. Those balls have to be caught. And Deebo had a horrible game, didn't want to talk to the media after. And Deebo's a team captain. So I don't know. When you lose, I feel like you have to still represent the team. But I don't know. It just comes off as like sort of a sore loser kind of vibe. And especially coming off of a couple weeks ago, he went over to the kicker, exchanged words, supposedly told him to lock in, and then, got physical with the long snapper. It's a horrible look for Deebo. Like, he did not look locked in, except for obviously that manufactured play on the screen. And then there was the kick return for I want to say it might have been like an 87-yard return that got called back because they called holding on Eric Sobert. And I think Sobert got kind of, the Niners got kind of screwed over on that one. I don't think that it was holding. I think that he was like within the frame of the player and he pancaked them and they called it. I think it was a horrendous call and changed a lot of the game, because that was coming right into the second half and the 49ers were down 17-7, I think, at that point. And the 49ers could have been right in the red zone, but obviously got called back. Horrible call. 49ers don't end up even scoring on that drive. I don't even think. So yeah, Christian McCaffrey got a little bit involved in the passing game, 3 catches, 37 yards. And it's not the same McCaffrey that we had last year, at least in terms of the rushing production. I really don't know what's going on. He just doesn't seem like he's ready, in game shape. But McCaffrey had 11 carries, 31 yards, which comes out to 2.8 yards per carry, which is not going to get it done. Jordan Mason, all right, there was a point in the game, I think I sent Mike a tweet, where Jesse Miller from Second Sports, shout out to Jesse, pointed out that Jordan Mason had just as many yards as Christian McCaffrey did on 4 less carries. So I think McCaffrey at that point had like 5 carries for 16 yards, and Jordan Mason had 1 carry for 16. And Jordan Mason was not involved in this game. I think right now Jordan Mason looks like the better running back on the team. He had the entire offseason. He wasn't battling, these injuries. Jordan Mason didn't have to rehab, didn't have to go all the way to Germany to fix his Achilles, and Mason has looked good. But in this game, he finished with 3 carries for 8 yards, because towards the end of the game, they put him in garbage time, lost, obviously ended the day losing more yardage in garbage time than he had up to that point. So that brought down his average. And then Brandon Allen, 2 carries for 5 yards, not as mobile as Purdy. And that's why you would want a guy like Joshua Dobbs in there. But, like I already sort of talked about Allen, but I would say for sure I expect better out of Deebo Samuel, considering he's one of the highest paid players on the team. He's got to be gone next year. He has got to be gone. I don't see where they can bring him back. I just don't see it. Him throwing his teammates under the bus and, in public, taunting them, just his demeanor. It's not, I don't think it's helping the team. And send him to New England, send him to a team that needs a wide receiver that might overpay, that might be desperate. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, based off his contract, and I mean, we were talking about it this past offseason, even during the season for the, trade deadline. I think the writing is on the wall. The only thing that might make it slightly difficult is the fact that Ayuk is coming off such a devastating injury, but it's just gotten to the point now where I think, if anything, Deebo is just being toxic to this franchise, to this team. And, you just drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round, and I think you have a promising young player in Jacob Cowing, and you still have Juwan Jennings under contract. So why do you need Deebo? Even if you have to eat some of that contract, if you can get a pick for him before this upcoming draft, yeah, by all means.
The only really standout stats in terms of defense that, really jump out is that Leonard Floyd had 2 sacks. Obviously, there was no Bosa to really get much of a rush on Jordan Love for most of the game. And I don't know. I don't think the defense was the biggest problem in this game. Like, definitely to start off the game, it was bad. Josh Jacobs had a field day today. He had 3 touchdowns. And I don't know, the Packers offense kind of stalled throughout the middle portion of the game. Like they started off hot. It was like 17-0. 17-0 at one point. And like they really game planned and had like guys like Jaden Reed involved, and then they just completely abandoned Jaden Reed, and then the offense stalled. And then afterwards they were able to, like, it could have been worse. Christian Watson dropped a wide open pass that could have been a touchdown. It was way down the field. There were a couple other drops by Green Bay receivers, but I mean, the final score ended up being 38-10. And really, this is a game that I think most 49er fans will just want to forget. And yeah, like what do you expect with a lot of your best players not playing? It's they were already up and down. They were 5-5 already with Purdy and Bosa. You take that away, you put them on the road against a team like the Packers, who are pretty damn good. It's not a recipe for success. But I'm going to take the comments right now, and then we can move on to previewing next week, because, I mean, spoiler alert, I don't think that it gets very much better next week. Let's see. Yeah, not off of Deebo's hands, says Fonzie. It went through his hands. It hit his hands and just went right through. Like, I think it's like the scene from The Longest Yard where Brucey's like, "Damn, I knew I shouldn't have eaten that popcorn." But obviously Brucey was throwing. Joel tuning back in, another one of our more faithful viewers. We appreciate the support, Joel. Welcome back in. We will talk about the Raiders after we get through the 49ers stuff.
Nice profile photo.
Oh yeah. Damn.
I like that.
You know what?
Raiders logo on the t-shirt.
Yeah. Kendrick's new album dropped, and this isn't a hot take, but I think Damn is much better than the new one. The new one's passable. I don't have many issues with the new album. I just think the Damn is better.
Damn is very hard to beat. So.
It's so good to listen to. Damn is really, really damn good. Fonzie says Mason is the best option at this point in time. I agree. I think that maybe you got to get to a certain point where you just got to think about shutting down McCaffrey because you have already like sort of extended his contract. You got to think long term with McCaffrey. I think this team, I don't see them going really anywhere. I don't think they win this football game, even if they're at full strength with Purdy, Bosa, and I think Trent Williams also didn't play today. I gotta double check that. But one other thing that jumped out in the game, there was a moment where Shanahan got very upset with the officials, and I think Shanahan was fully in the right, where the Packers went hurry up at the line, and they had substituted, and they didn't give the 49ers time to substitute on defense, so they got the 49ers for a penalty for having 12 men on the field, but it was also an illegal formation on the offense, so those offset. The next play, it was still 12 men on the field. So that's definitely bad, but I can see where Shanahan was frustrated with the first one. The second one, it's like, all right, you gotta get the right amount of people on the field. All right. Who else is glad that T.O. called out Debo? Honestly, I'm glad. And then, I mean, clearly Debo, heard it, right? Clearly Debo, or the message got relayed to Debo because he tweeted about it, and he's like, hey, T.O., essentially told him to chill out. And I don't know. I think good for Terrell Owens to call out Debo Samuel because he is not playing up to his standard. Debo has a higher standard, I think, as a player, and I would hope that he can still recapture that standard, but this season has been just horrible for him. Remember this offseason, Mike, when I said I would be ecstatic if their plan was to keep Ayuk and trade away Debo?
Yep.
Ayuk didn't have a good season either this year, but I feel like the book has been out on Debo.
Yeah.
No, the defense was not the problem. Yeah. The defense was not the entire problem. Like, the defense wasn't great. It's clearly a downgrade from what they've had in the past, but yeah. And then Frank kind of feels the same as well. I find little fault with the defense today. I agree. They gave the offense so many opportunities. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Joel says, thoughts on Shanahan right now? Well, I mean, he's just very stubborn. And, one thing, like, Shanahan always gets compared to Harbaugh because of how successful they've, their successful tenures in between that, like, awful period between Chip Kelly and Jim Tom Sula. And so I'll put it to you this way. I think that, like, it's kind of hard to root for Shanahan when he's not winning because there's just nothing redeeming about his personality. Like, he does not seem like a very relatable guy. He just seems very stubborn, thinks things should be a certain way, and does not want to change. And there's nothing fun about, like, his press conferences or anything. He gets very defensive with the media. Like, yeah, I get it. You want, like, a serious head coach and everything, but, like, if they're not winning, it's miserable. And right now they're not winning. So I don't know. What do you think about Shanahan right now, Mike?
I think it's because they're not winning, but he just feels a little, I shouldn't say he feels different. Like, his personality hasn't exactly changed. It's just, I think, like I said, because they're not winning, it feels like instead of him being like this kind of, hard-headed, not very personable coach, now that they're losing, he looks more like he's acting the exact same as he always has. But now that they're not winning, they don't have a winning record. He kind of comes off like stale or like, just tired of it, very over it.
He looks a little burnt out. I don't know if he is, but he looks a little bit burnt out. And like that was kind of my prediction of whether or not this was going to be a Super Bowl hangover year. And so, all right, here's the thing. Just because the 49ers are bad this season doesn't mean that it's necessarily over if they do ride with Shanahan. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles were the team that, I mean, they started off good and then they just plummeted. And then it's like, man, are they going to get rid of Nick Sirianni? Like they freaking fell apart. Like I've never seen a team fall apart before. And like it almost looked like, man, this guy isn't like a serious head coach. They are one of the top 2 seeds in the NFC this season. They might go back to the Super Bowl. You never know. They have a good roster. We'll see. For me, it's between them and Detroit right now.
Yeah.
So, all right. What I like about Shanahan, I think I like his history with the 49ers because his dad coached and then Shanahan was a ball boy. I like that. I like the way that he's able to bring in talent. Ever since he's been here, he's brought in talented players. He got this franchise going in the right direction after, Tom Sula and Chip Kelly. I mean, hard to really have it go in the wrong direction once you go from that. But I mean, he has done a good job, but he has not been perfect. And he didn't even need to be perfect, but in certain areas, managing the clock late in the game. One thing I hate about having Shanahan as a coach is I feel like he doesn't divert his focus away from his play sheet. A player goes down, and he's just reading his play call. Like, what are you, what are you reading? Is there like a book hidden behind that play sheet? Like, how can you be stuck, fixated on it for so long? There is an entire football game going on out there. You are the head coach. Like, all right, I get it. What is Shanahan crying about a guy getting injured going to do? And that's what he would tell you. Like, oh, I'm not gonna like pretend to do this. Like, that's not me. Like, it just doesn't give me a whole lot of empathy as a fan of like, hey, this is a guy who genuinely cares about his players. Like, it's just, to me, he's just playing Madden and always looking at the play sheet. Like, that's kind of how it feels like he coaches the team. So, I don't know. That's one of the things I don't like. And he just doesn't get the fans very motivated. Like I said, if he's not winning, there's not really much redeeming of him. But that's just my opinion of him. You can love him. I'm not going to tell any 49er fan they shouldn't love him just because I'm not in love with his sort of the way that he runs things. I just disagree with a lot of the ways that he runs the team. Fonzie says, this whole season has sucked. Yep. Let's see. What has our status been in 7 years? Well, in 7 years, they have been the team that has built one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. But right now, as it currently stands, their status right now is the team that has missed their Super Bowl window and is going to probably have to rebuild. That's their current status right now. It's not 100% set on that, but yeah. All right. Let's see. We're all allowed a down year. Yeah. I'm not saying fire Shanahan, and I do see Fonzie's question that I will get to in a second. I feel like us fans take it, like too personally. I would say it does get pretty like personal. I think if you can't upgrade over Shanahan, you don't fire him right now. So I don't know. Will the offseason be another episode of the DC scapegoat? I just wonder, like, how long until they scapegoat somebody else? Like, what about John Lynch? I don't think John Lynch has done a horrible job. They just had one of their best drafts in the past couple of years, but I mean, you know how the NFL works as a business. Sometimes heads roll. So Fonzie says, burnt out 7 years at the top. Like they said, them playing NFC championship games and Super Bowls equate to a whole season, literally a season. Yeah, but that's kind of the point. it's like they've played a lot of football and haven't climbed the mountaintop. That's why I would say they're a little bit burnt out. It's got to be exhausting going through all that extra football and not having it result in their final goal. It's always a disappointment every single time they get deep in the playoffs. There hasn't been that ultimate the payoff. So that's why I'd say Shanahan himself looks a little burnt out. The team they just don't look as motivated as before. They don't have that same aura. Teams aren't scared when they play them. That's just my take on it. But Fonzie asks, Josh, who would you take over Shanahan? That is a good question. Are you saying like candidates who are available right now, or are you saying any coach in the NFL? Because I think there are a handful of coaches that I wouldn't skip a beat to take over Shanahan right now. Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh. I would take Mike Tomlin over Kyle Shanahan. He's won a Super Bowl before and has never had a losing season. John Harbaugh, I would take. Dan Campbell, I would take over Kyle Shanahan.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to have him as a head coach.
Yeah, I think I would take Sean McVay. He's won a Super Bowl.
He has. Man, yeah.
I say they're similar.
Yeah, possibly LaFleur, because LaFleur actually pays attention to the games. But, all right, Fonzie, in terms of candidates right now who could be available this offseason, who I would take over Kyle Shanahan, I mean, Ben Johnson would be my guy that I would be intrigued with. Ultimately, he could not pan out as a head coach. Maybe he's just meant to be an offensive coordinator, but he is a guy that I would feel comfortable turning the reins to. But other than that, nobody immediately jumps to mind. It's not my job, though, to hire the next guy.
Would you take Bill Belichick?
No. I would let Kyle keep going. Yeah. I think Belichick's a little too old. I get it, the Super Bowl pedigree and everything like that, but dude, he's cheated before, and I don't know. He had Tom Brady.
Yeah.
All right. Frank says video game mentality. Just asking for an opinion. Yeah, I mean, I hope you can at least like respect my answer, But like I said, you don't have to agree with it. Like you're definitely entitled to have your opinion. What coaches would you take over Kyle Shanahan? Would be my question. It would be hard to upgrade Shanahan with the candidates currently available. I kind of agree. It's like maybe Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
So
the only other person I could think of, and I don't think like he's coached in the NFL before and it didn't work out, would be Nick Saban. Mm-hmm. That's the only other coach I could think of besides Bill Belichick that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's Vrabel, but I wouldn't take Vrabel over Kyle.
Yeah,
it's just it sucks because since there aren't these great candidates out there, everybody always comes to Kyle's defense of like, well, if it's not going to be him, what do you want to go back to the Chip Kelly era? And the problem with when they fired Harbaugh was that they didn't get a good, suitable replacement for him. They just hired the defensive line coach and called it a day because he was friends with the Yorks. And then after that, they chose Chip Kelly, who was also bad. I feel like as soon as Kyle learns to let go of his ego, he will be a monster just like Bill Belichick and Andy Reid. I just don't think he'll ever get rid of his ego. I think he's that stubborn. That's my issue with him. He consistently will not learn. And that, I mean, he will keep us in the mix at the top. I'd say consistently, as long as he's a head coach, he should keep the 49ers relevant. I just don't know if he'll ever win a Super Bowl if he doesn't ever let go of those tendencies. It would have to be a big name or a hot commodity with this fan base. Yeah, I think so. I think right now, like if they fire Kyle Shanahan and replace him with a guy who nobody's ever heard of, you're gonna have a tough time. Bro, he's still young as fuck. Yeah, I know, and he's still hella stubborn. You like, I don't want to be coming off as like very confrontational, Fonzie. I definitely think your opinion is very valid, and you might be right. Maybe Kyle Shanahan will figure it out. It's just with the information I'm given from Kyle, I wish that he would have the introspection that I think that he needs. I think he needs to understand that everything that he's ever done is not 100% right, and you address the mistakes that you've made and you correct them. I just think that he gets very defensive about the decisions that he makes, or at least that's how it comes across, and they never get addressed. He makes the same mistake over and over. You know, as soon as he, that's why I say as soon as he gets over himself, I feel he will be better. I hope so, because if he's going to be the head coach long term, he needs to be. But this upcoming week against the Bills, I don't think that he's going to learn any mistakes. I think it's going to be another long week for the 49ers. They are going to be playing the Bills. I want to say on the road, 49ers versus Bills. It is going to be a Sunday night football game at Buffalo on December 1st. It might be snowing. I don't know what the weather is going to be. I think whether it's Brock Purdy returning or if it's Nick Bosa who's going to be right back out there, or whether it's going to be Brandon Allen throwing passes, Joshua Dobbs, Tanner Mordecai, Daniel Jones. Which the Daniel Jones thing, can we stop that? What a waste. That would be a waste of time. It would be a waste of time. He doesn't know the offense.
Oh my God. It just hit me. He's going to be a Raider. Continue.
Yeah, and then he's going to win games. No, just that would just be the Raiders' luck. But my gut tells me that he's going to end up being a Raider, especially after Minshew's injury. I would just pray to God that he does not win games if I'm a Raider fan. But we'll talk about that in a second. I'm not interested in Daniel Jones. He might be better than Brandon Allen, but so is Josh Dobbs, but he's not going to play.
Yeah. It's good to have depth, but, I think Daniel Jones is kind of, at this point, he's very similar to a Sam Darnold where he should be more of a project and not, set in stone number 2 quarterback. He damn near should be a number 3 quarterback for a year,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So you're taking the Niners in this one?
I am not.
No? All right.
No. That was part of the reason why I chose the Niners last week before knowing about Purdy and Bosa being out was I feel like they should have gone into that Packers game with their backs against the wall, and I think no matter what, they're going to lose to the Bills, which only made the Packers game a bigger, must-win game than it already was.
They did go into that game with their backs against the wall. They just also went blindfolded, and you put both of their arms tied behind their back, and you put a bag over their head, and they got their asses kicked. They didn't know what hit them. So I don't know. Josh Allen, I think is going to have a good game. The 49ers in their prime played against the Buffalo Bills. Maybe the last time might have been 2020. So maybe that was the last Super Bowl hangover year that they played against Buffalo. But they're just not a good matchup for the Niners. Josh Allen literally is the definition of a quarterback that would give the 49ers trouble. Just a guy who escapes pressure, can run. James Cook is a good running back. Keon Coleman. Is Coleman back to playing, or is he still injured?
I think he's still injured. He might be coming. Actually,
he might be coming back because they're coming off a bye, right?
Yeah.
Another team that the 49ers are playing coming off a bye. So they had 2 weeks to prepare for this game to annihilate the 49ers and put them out of their misery. I don't know. I think Buffalo. I think higher of Buffalo than I do Green Bay. This is another tough matchup. Give me the Bills in this one. I just think it's not our year. It's not our year, or at least it's not our week. It's not our week. Might be our year. Maybe we can turn things around. Like this part of the schedule, maybe make the playoffs, but I don't know. Things are not going well right now in Ninerland. You're picking the Bills, right?
I sure am.
Yeah. The Bills defense is pretty good, right? Right, Mike?
I think it's been solid. It hasn't been like top tier, but it's been solid.
Yeah. Unless like we get a vintage McCaffrey performance and the 49ers fix all their penalties and their special teams doesn't gaff it up, and then their defense can play better. That's a lot to ask for. I'm just going to pick Buffalo. That's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
Especially for a team like the 49ers who don't play in very cold weather. So, yeah, let me get to the rest of these comments and then we can, move over to the Raiders. How long did it take Bill Belichick or Andy Reid to win a Super Bowl? It definitely took a long time, but I mean, Bill Belichick and Andy Reid, just because they were eventually able to, overcome their early career shortcomings doesn't mean that it's guaranteed that Kyle Shanahan will. There have been plenty of coaches who have been great have been really good coaches, had success, who have never won. So, yeah, I mean, it's a matter of whether Shanahan's willing to learn. And I'd say right now it doesn't look like he wants to. So maybe you give him 10 years. I mean, are you, as a 49er fan, are you willing to wait 10 years for Shanahan to win a Super Bowl? That would put him in like year 17 as being a head coach. And I don't know. I'd be pretty pissed off if the 49ers don't win a Super Bowl in the next 10 years. I would probably be thinking to myself like yeah, I'm 35, going on to 36. Like maybe they might not ever win.
I'm already thinking that.
Yeah,
for the Raiders.
Don't worry, Mike. They'll win the first round pick thing this year.
It's looking better.
Daniel Jones is like an Alex Smith. I would say like Alex Smith pre-Harbaugh.
Yeah, no, exactly. I can see that. Absolutely. And I can see him still, like, remember a year or two ago when he was a free agent or going to be free agent and then the Giants re-signed him to that ridiculous deal instead of Saquon, I want to say. Like they had the option between the two and they chose Daniel Jones.
What a horrible decision.
Yeah,
what a horrible decision.
It's all the way bad. I mean, I understand not giving a running back a long-term deal, but like, I mean, Saquon might be making a case for Offensive Player of the Year right now on the Eagles. Yep. And just with Daniel Jones a year or 2 years ago, I guess it'd be 2, maybe 3. Damn. I was saying, if Daniel Jones hits free agency, like, I wouldn't be mad at the Raiders signing him. Like, I see the potential with him. It's just he needs to be developed. And for one thing, they need to have the right coach in the building to do that, whether it's Daniel Jones or a rookie quarterback, which I would prefer a rookie quarterback, but I can see the Alex Smith route. I think that's a great comment. I think that's a great call.
Yeah, I think that is a very good comparison because Alex Smith was really, really bad before Harbaugh. Yep. Yep. If you've been a 49er fan for a long time, you would know. And, Daniel Jones has the tools. Like, he has the tools, but they need to be controlled. And maybe a scheme like Shanahan's would be the perfect, place for him. It's just every time I've seen Daniel Jones play, everything looks very chaotic and like he doesn't know what to do. And maybe Shanahan telling him exactly what to do would be the answer for him. but it might be Antonio Pierce telling him what to do.
I highly doubt that, unless they're both in the Canadian Football League. But even his mobility and everything about him reminds me a lot of Alex Smith. Actually, high draft pick. Yeah, all of it.
I would say that Daniel Jones is a little bit more mobile than Alex Smith. I do think about that play against the Saints in the playoffs where Alex Smith ran for that touchdown, but Daniel Jones is he is a rushing weapon.
Yeah.
I would say Daniel Jones is like Josh Allen if you cut off his head and stuck him out there. Josh Allen at least he makes the boneheaded plays, but Daniel Jones just makes a lot of boneheaded plays. It's just horrible decisions. He's not going to save the 49ers, but like I said, I think he would be better than Brandon Allen, but it's at this point taking on a project. I don't know. Thrown into the fire. With the highest expectations but the lowest requirements met team-wise. I'm assuming for Daniel Jones stepping in. We will lose, bro, against the Bills. Yeah. Allen had his hand warmers for most of the first half. Bro, it wasn't all that cold. I'm sure it was pretty cold. And then honestly, for me, I don't know if I have poor circulation. I know I'm not Brandon Allen, but I'm just trying to be a little empathetic. My hands get very cold, and when I'm playing video games or if I'm playing sports and my hands or my fingers are frozen, it's horrible. I perform much worse if my hands are numb. So I understand why they keep it warm. What Fonzie means is that why are the 49ers giving up on Shanahan? Yeah, I'd say it has to do with if there is somebody out there to replace him with. Shit, can you trade him? If there's a team out there that would trade picks and you have a guy that you might be interested in, why not make the trade?
I think there would definitely be teams interested in trading for him for sure.
Yeah. Smith was drafted over Rodgers. Smith went into a rebuild. Rodgers got to sit 3 seasons behind a legend in Favre. Yeah. So did Jordan Love. So everyone else seemed fine though. No one on the cast looked as if they were frozen. Yeah. Like I said, it's probably colder than what it looked. It's Wisconsin in late November. It's cold out there. It wasn't snowing, but yeah. You might be right, Fonzie. I don't know. Let's talk about the Raiders versus Broncos, Mike. How is the tank going?
It got more promising. The big news out of this game is that Gardner Minshew broke his collarbone. And it's always those plays where they land right on their shoulder and there's just a little bit of weight put down on it by the defender. And it didn't even look that bad, but it was just quick, and all of a sudden he's holding his collarbone and he's not moving his arm, and you know what happened.
Yep.
So as of right now, Desmond Ridder is the starting quarterback.
Over O'Connell? Oh, he's hurt.
IR. He's hurt. Yeah. I want to say he's out at least 6 weeks with his broken thumb. I don't know. I don't remember exactly which game that happened in. But I would assume he'll still be out for a couple of weeks, which leads me to the realization that I had literally a couple minutes ago, which is there's probably a pretty high likelihood the Raiders go for Daniel Jones. He's the only guy on the market that makes sense, and probably because of his contract with the Giants, he could probably sign for pretty cheap because he's still getting paid by the Giants. similar to Russell Wilson with the Steelers. So I can see Daniel Jones to the Raiders for sure. And I don't know if he would only sign for like the remainder of the season just to try to get some snaps in, on a different team. Like I highly doubt with the position the Raiders are in that they'd want to give him a long-term deal. And I feel like he'd probably want to hit the market next year anyways. So it could just be like a remainder of season type of thing. And then if they like him, they could try to keep him. But, if they're going to be in the position, which I hope they are, to be picking top 3, which they currently are, they should be going for a quarterback in the draft. Which, speaking of, let's see, according to tankathon.com, the Raiders are currently sitting at 3rd overall in a 3-way tie with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who currently have the 1st overall pick, and the New York Giants at 2-9. And I think New England won today. The Panthers almost won today, but they have 3 wins. Tennessee won today. And on Thursday, Cleveland won against Pittsburgh. Those are 3 teams that were in the tie with us. So it was a 6-way tie. I could be wrong on New England, but regardless, like some of those teams that the Raiders needed to win, they won this week. Go ahead.
So right now, let's talk about the teams that are currently ahead of the Raiders. I think it's no surprise that the Giants are going to be drafting a quarterback. That's what they're going for. Right now, the Raiders are in a race for that, obviously to get the 1st overall pick. But Jacksonville right now, they are the tricky team because I don't think are going to be in the market to draft a quarterback. But they might trade that pick away because you can get a lot for the 1st overall pick.
Yep. Yeah, if this were the draft order at the end of the season, I could see a scenario where the Raiders trade up 2 picks. I just don't know what they have to give up to do that. Like they did get a 3rd-round pick for Devontae.
Yeah.
So you could throw that in there, I guess. And then probably like at least one more pick. Hopefully nothing like no 1st-round picks, but it's the 1st overall pick, so you might have to. And I wouldn't. I get it. Hey, it's the quarterback. Like if you think he's the guy, and if Tom Brady, I know there was a report that Tom Brady's going to have over 90%. Let me try to term this correctly. But it was from Diana Rossini. Said that right.
Real quick, while you pull that up, let me get to a couple comments. Amin the Dream, welcome back. Amin, appreciate you checking out the show. Says, Raiders and teams like the Raiders or Bears hired bad offensive coordinators like Getsy and Waldron, who got fired by previous teams the season before, yet they still got hired. Makes no sense to me. So here's the thing, at least in the Raiders case about them hiring Getsy, that was not their first choice. They tried to hire Cliff Kingsbury, and he backed out to go to Washington. So the Raiders kind of had to settle at offensive coordinator, and they got, obviously, not a good solution, not a good fit.
Yeah.
You pulled up something?
Yeah, so, this is on Yardbarker, but this is, I believe, Diana Rossini of The Athletic. Tom Brady's involvement in running the Raiders, it will be closer to 90%.
Closer to 90%. That's great news for Raider fans. It's got to be something different.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm just trying to read this and see if there's anything.
Meanwhile, while you're checking that out. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I know. All I'll say is I know the other thing that was notable from that was just that he will have a big hand in helping the Raiders, make their decision at quarterback moving forward, which obviously goes in towards drafting a quarterback. And the interesting aspect is potentially developing him. That's what I'm really intrigued by is like once we get that quarterback, like because he's a part owner, like can he just he could just be at the practice field every time or every game or every week? Can he help develop the quarterback like on a daily basis? I doubt he has the time for that, but man, that'd be really interesting, wouldn't it? And the other thing I'll say about that right now is just I've come to the understanding that he really does have, to one extent or another, a good relationship with Shadur Sanders as far as already kind of helping and training him and working with him. So if that's the case, like that's a pretty
I don't think
that's a
he can
pretty
continue
obvious.
doing that. I don't think it's in line with the rules now that he's a part owner. I don't think he can continue with that because that would
Yeah,
be
maybe.
sort of that would be collusion.
Maybe. Yeah, at that point then maybe he's stopped since he got approved as an owner. But
Probably.
that at least gives you a pretty obvious, like, you know, chances are it's that guy sort of vibe, you know?
Yeah.
And then of course the hilarious, thank God tweets every time the Raiders lose a game from Shadur
Yeah.
Sanders, which I fucking love. I think that's hilarious. And again, if he is to be the quarterback, all that matters to me is if he plays good, develops well, and wins. I
Yep.
don't like if he's not my favorite choice going to the draft. Like, hey, it is what it is. I'm not in control here, so I got to just hope for the best. Um, but that all being said, all that was coming out of the Gardner Minshew injury, which again, unless Daniel Jones comes in here and rejuvenates his career, as of right now, it looks like this is because of their quarterback situation. It's them and the Giants, really. And then the Jaguars. I think Trevor Lawrence is hurt to the point where he might not even return this season. Am I wrong?
Probably not. They'll probably shut him down. Yeah.
So those are the three teams at the top of the draft, and they are the obvious top three teams as far as in the worst position. And I don't know. I hope the Giants sneak out a couple wins. I hope the Raiders don't, which I think with Gardner Minshew, what's his name? Why am I? Damn, quarterback from Arizona.
Kyler.
No, on the Raiders. Desmond Ritter. With
Oh,
Desmond Ritter at quarterback, I don't think they're going to be winning many games, moving forward. And then they have a matchup with the Jaguars, Week 16. That's going to be huge. Actually, the final 3 weeks of the season are pretty interesting. It's going to be Jaguars, race for first overall pick, Saints, matchup against Derek Carr, and then final game of the season, Chargers. It's whatever, but it might be huge for the Chargers. But hopefully they're not resting starters or something, But
yeah.
anyways.
Real quick, I do want to focus. I do see a lot of comments. I have a lot highlighted so I can get to them. But I want to focus on the Raider ones. Frank says the Raiders need a new coach more than Frisco does, and obviously I'll get to the Niner comments after we're done talking about the Raiders.
They need a complete coaching overhaul.
Will says, "Yo, my guys, Will, welcome back.
Will, welcome.
We are cooked." He's talking about the Niners. Like I said, we'll get to that.
We are all cooked.
Well, I guess, yeah, we are all cooked. Daniel Jones wouldn't make any difference, to be honest, at least this season. I will say he could make a difference in a negative way if he comes in for the Raiders and he's trying to prove himself as a starter and messes around and wins a game. That would make a difference in a negative way for the Raiders. They just have to take their medicine.
Especially with his mobility, but also I would mostly agree with Joel here just because he would need to come in and learn the playbook. So if they started him day one, like they'd be running out there with a pretty basic playbook for him if I had to guess. And they can't run the fucking ball. They still cannot run the ball. So I don't see it. Like even with him at quarter, like chances are it won't make a difference. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Fonzie says, I didn't see the Raiders versus Broncos game, but I know we're both in the same boat, Mike.
Yeah, I was just rooting for a loss.
Yeah. All right. Amin the Dream says, Josh, the jacket is fire. I appreciate it. I love this jacket. It fits perfectly. And yeah, it's pretty comfy. Keeps me warm. And, in the midst of getting, my team getting their ass kicked, I at least was warm, unlike the players on the field who had their hands in the hands warmer. Shout out to Fonzie. Let's see here. Already got to that one. Raiders need 129%. Honestly, they need Jesus.
They need a lot of things.
Fonzie says, Mike, you said AZ, which is Kyler.
Yeah, I meant from Arizona, as in Desmond Ridder used to play from Arizona.
The university.
Recently. No, he went to Cincinnati. I meant Arizona as in the Cardinals. Just the fact that Ridder
was on the Falcons.
And then he was traded to the Cardinals.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Fonzie adds baby Jesus. The Raiders need baby Jesus. So
the Raiders need Al Davis to step into the Lazarus pit.
Let's go ahead and talk about the Raiders versus Chiefs, and then I'll get to those final Niner comments that I wasn't able to get to. And then before we get to
the Chiefs, I don't really want to talk about too many players. Just Jacoby Myers had a good game, 10 catches, 121 yards. Trey Tucker had a good game, 7 catches, 82 yards. Brock Bowers was covered by Pat Surtain in this game, which is very interesting. The fact that maybe some teams might choose to start covering Bowers as the top receiver, just, man cover that guy with your best corner. Clearly it worked because Bowers only had 4 catches for 38 yards. One play I want to talk about was the fake punt where AJ Cole threw a completion to Divine Diablo, of all people, for 34 yards. It's awesome. It's hilarious. They still lost the game, so I love that shit. Michael Mayer returned. Wait, you know what? I'm sorry. I think he returned last week, and I just didn't mention on the podcast, but it's nice that Michael Mayer is back. Desmond Ridder, when he took over, he lost a fumble immediately, and that pretty much put a nail in the game for the Raiders. And then on defense, DeCam Richardson, the rookie corner, led the team in tackles. Couple passes defended by DeCam, Jack Jones, Polamalu, Trevon Merrick, and a few others. Max Crosby kind of got back to his old usual self with 3 tackles for loss. But the guy who played the best on defense was actually Tyree Wilson. And it seems like this season, here and there, he's been getting, for lack of a better term, more consistent. And that's really good to see, especially, we don't know what's going to happen with Malcolm Kuntz. So, if Tyree Wilson can develop into that guy opposite Max Crosby, that'd be huge. But he had a sack and 2 tackles for loss in this game. And just moving forward, going into this offseason, the Raiders are going to have potentially top 3 cap space, potentially a top 3 pick in the draft. It'll be really interesting to see what this roster looks like next season. I guess the last thing I'll say here is it'll just be interesting to see what they do with Tom Telesco, because if you keep him, I don't even know if I would consider it a rebuild. It's really just a massive retooling at quarterback and probably coach, the entire coaching staff. You could call that a rebuild, I guess, but usually to me, a rebuild is like you start selling all the assets, which, hey, they traded Devontae Adams, but they're not going to trade Max Crosby. And to me, unless they do, and they trade off a bunch of other young guys, like say a Nate Hobbs, who they need to re-sign, Trevon Merrick, who they need to re-sign. If they let all these defensive players go in free agency this year, then it's going to start feeling like a rebuild. Oh, wow, they're really redoing everything on defense besides Crosby. But if they keep most of those guys, then, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are we ready to move on to the Chiefs?
Yep.
All right. Real quick, Fonzie has a perfect comment. He says, "Why talk about the Chiefs when we know the outcome? Whether they play straight up or whether they pay straight up, I agree. We can kind of keep it brief. We know the Chiefs very well. We've talked about them several times, more times than I would want to talk about the Chiefs on this channel. Because, all right, let's just be honest. Besides Kansas City Chiefs fans, the Chiefs drive every single fan base nuts. Everybody wants to see them win. I will say they're like
Lose?
their stability, huh? The Chiefs.
Yeah. You said everybody wants to see them win.
Everybody wants to see them lose. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Oof. Maybe they paid me. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe they paid me to say that. No, but in all seriousness, the Chiefs are coming off a game where they had to really battle against one of the worst teams in the NFL in Carolina. And I don't know. I just had a feeling like going into that game that I honestly was like, the Panthers might upset the Chiefs when they play them. I texted that in the group chat. I have receipts of that, okay? So don't think I'm pulling a LeBron right now where I was like, yeah, I just woke up this morning thinking, the Panthers were going to do something special. They didn't end up winning, but I don't know. There was something about that game where the Panthers were on an emotional high. Right now, the Raiders are just in full-on tank mode, I think. And the Chiefs, they remember the Mahomes puppet in the offseason. This is going to be a Black Friday game televised on Netflix. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the Raiders messed around and won this game, but I just can't predict that. I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, once it hit me about 2.5 minutes ago when I realized that, this is going to be a nationally televised game on a Friday night, the entire nation is going to be forced to watch Desmond Ridder versus the Chiefs defense. The Chiefs should kick our ass, but it might be closer than it should be. But the Chiefs will win.
They say Black Friday is, jam-packed full of deals and specials, but they also say you get what you pay for. So if this is the Black Friday game, hey, you're getting Desmond Ridder. And I mean, we can hope for a good football game. And, the Raiders are going to really put on a fight, Yeah, I got the Chiefs winning this game.
I want to look at something.
Yeah? What do you want to look at?
I want to look. Let's see. I want to look at the Giants' remainder of their schedule. So, okay. The Giants next week are going to Dallas. Then they have New Orleans. Then Baltimore, at Atlanta, Indianapolis, and finish the season against Philadelphia in Philly. Which, depending on how the season goes for the Lions and Philadelphia Eagles, Philly could be resting starters in that game. But regardless, I mean, Dallas, New Orleans the next 2 weeks, those are 2 winnable games for the Giants. Atlanta should beat them, but they haven't been exactly very, consistent this season. And then Indianapolis, I'd say a similar thing about them. Like, I wouldn't say the Giants can't beat them, And then just for shits and giggles, why not look for the Jaguars as well? Let's see really quick. Because I know, obviously, the Jags are playing the Raiders later this season. Week 16. But they are coming out of the bye this week. This was week 12, right?
Yeah, we're headed on to week 13 now.
Yeah. So they're going to play Houston next week, then at Tennessee. That's a winnable game. New York Jets, at this point, winnable game. Week 16, Vegas. Week 17, Tennessee again. And then Indianapolis to finish the season. So, I mean, depending on how Trevor Lawrence, his injury goes, they have a lot of winnable games to finish out the season. And I mean, the Jags and Titans beating up on each other is big too, just in case the Raiders get a win down the road. They could possibly each beat each other once and keep themselves behind the Raiders. But man, I just want 2 things at this point. I just want Brock Bowers to break the fucking records, and I want the first overall pick.
Which he has been doing. He now has the
Yep.
most receptions out of any Raider rookie, right?
Yep. He passed Amari Cooper's record, and he's going into this weekend. He was on pace for like 115 catches. That's insane for a wide receiver.
My prediction has come to fruition where I said, I mean, it wasn't like the hottest take, but hey, the quarterbacks are going to hold this team back, and Brock Bowers is going to ball out. And everybody in the offseason is going to be saying, hey, we need to get a quarterback for Brock Bowers. It had it written all over it. And maybe like I'm taking credit for something that people could have seen a mile away. But yeah. Fonzie says, fight who? I'm still trying to figure that one out. I don't have anything snarky. Raiders are just going to have to put up a fight to sell tickets. And yeah, to me, give me Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes over the Raiders tandem of Antonio Pierce and Desmond Ridder. It's not even close.
I know the Raiders beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead last year, but I think the intensity and the vibes with Antonio Pierce last year were much different, and of course the quarterback was different. And I don't think that's happening again this year. I think the Chiefs are going to, get it done at home.
And the Chiefs are really fighting to maintain that top seed in the AFC. They are trying to three-peat this year, and the Bills, I think, are currently at like 8-2 or 9-2. They're
not only fighting with like the Bills for the top seed, they're fighting the Chargers off for the division. Like, they're a couple sketchy losses away. I don't know what their schedule looks like, but I'm curious. I mean, do they face the Chargers again this year? I'm sure
they do.
I feel like
they do.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. Chiefs. This will be the last schedule I want to look at, and then we can get out of here.
Okay. After taking your guys' comments, I do have them starred, the bookmarked ones that I want to get through, and if any come in, we definitely always appreciate you guys coming in and adding to our show.
So obviously they have Vegas on Friday, then they have the Chargers, and that is also in Kansas City. Then at Cleveland, which that should be a win. Houston, Pittsburgh, Denver to finish the season.
Can you repeat that?
Vegas, Chargers, Cleveland, Houston, Pittsburgh, Denver.
That's a pretty tough schedule for the Chiefs going forward. This is a must-win for them right now if they want that top seed.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You are picking the Raiders? You really want them to win? On Netflix, because it's on Netflix, right?
Right.
All right. Let's go ahead and finish up with our final topics, and then we'll dismiss everyone from the Thanksgiving table. Since this technically is our last show before Thanksgiving, so I hope everybody, who's in the chat or watching the show, I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. Fonzie says, I wanted to see Dobbs. Yeah, I wanted to see Dobbs too, because, here's the thing. He's not only maybe a little bit better, I think he's a little bit more fun to watch than Brandon Allen. I always notice that mobile quarterbacks are a lot more exciting to watch than statues. Amin the Dream, coming with heat right now. People are worried about what will happen if we get rid of Kyle, but I promise you we will never win a Super Bowl with Kyle as head coach. Kyle will never win a Super Bowl in San Francisco. Losing 3 Super Bowls in the same fashion is hard to do. Yeah, so obviously pairing in the Atlanta Super Bowl. I also am of the mindset that I just don't think Kyle Shanahan is going to have the introspection to grow and not make the same mistake that he has made in now 3 Super Bowls, closing out the game late. They were up 28-3. You just had to run out the clock. You took a sack that took you out of field goal range. Okay? Maybe you can pin that on Dan Quinn, because Dan Quinn also had a part in that. They're up 10 points in the fourth quarter in 2019 against the Chiefs, yeah, the defense blew a coverage. Bosa was held. They started throwing the ball with Jimmy Garoppolo. And shit happens when you start throwing the ball. It's more risky. Tyrann Mathieu on that Chiefs Super Bowl winning team said, "Thank God they stopped running the ball. We didn't have any answers for their run, for their rushing attack." Yeah, they got a gift from Kyle Shanahan there. We can take it to the NFC Championship game against the Rams. Jimmy Garoppolo was not very good passing. They had to come back late because of a Jaquiski Tartt dropped interception that would have gave them a little bit more time to be able to run the football. But they had that game in the bag as well. Didn't win it. The one against Philadelphia, it was going to be a close game if both teams were fully healthy, so we don't really know how that one would have played out. The Super Bowl this year, another 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. Right? It was a 10-point lead in this Super Bowl, right, Mike?
I believe so.
49ers did not put away the Chiefs, but really they abandoned the run in the third quarter. And that was the main reason why they lost. They had an opportunity, I think, to pull away from the Chiefs, who, the 49ers could have milked the clock. The Niners were already up. They had possession. And I don't know, you go with like 3 straight drives with only one run mixed in between. Why? It just threw off the rhythm. So, yeah. But no, I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all my Niner fans, my fellow Niner fans. Don't mean to bring up those repressed memories. Let's talk about today. Let's talk about the feelings of today. Will says, disgusted in those garbage time runs from Mason after running him once all game. Truly baffles me. Yeah, Mike, I mean, I was just telling Mike, at the beginning of the show, Jordan Mason got 16 yards on his only rush that mattered in the game. Then it was garbage time. Why are you what is with the reluctance to get him involved? He has a little bit more juice than McCaffrey. McCaffrey is already signed to a long-term deal. Jordan Mason is a free agent, obviously restricted free agent after this year, so they can bring him back if they want to. But why not use Jordan Mason as much as possible? These running backs, they don't last very long. McCaffrey is the one that you want to be prolonging. Right now, Mason has more juice. You can prolong McCaffrey. Think about it.
Especially considering McCaffrey's the highest paid running back in football.
By far.
Who just got re-signed this past offseason.
Yep. Fonzie says, doesn't Darnold give anyone hope? Sam Darnold? I guess. No. I guess Vikings fans. Oh, maybe. All right. The context of this is probably Sam Darnold, being able to rejuvenate his career a little bit. Mm-hmm. Does that give people hope that Daniel Jones can do the same thing?
I don't know if I said it or not, but that's where my mind went before seeing the Alex Smith comment. Was I think I said it, but Daniel Jones seems like a Sam Darnold of high draft pick, failed with his team. For Darnold, it was teams, and needs to go to a team like a Niners or where could he get somebody, honestly, because of the Alex Smith comment. I'm going to just say it, and I know you're going to agree with me. The best coach for Daniel Jones is Jim Harbaugh. And I think if he went to the Chargers, he'd be the perfect backup for Justin Herbert, and he could develop there on a 1 to 2 year deal and at the very least gain confidence.
I mean, he would definitely gain confidence. I just don't know if Harbaugh could fix the issues with Daniel Jones, but I think, all right, here's the difference between Harbaugh and Shanahan in regards to quarterbacks. Harbaugh helps build quarterbacks, and Shanahan hides the deficiencies of quarterbacks. There's a huge difference between the two.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo left the 49ers. Well, actually, Jimmy Garoppolo, the more time that he spent on the Niners, looked worse and worse. And then he left the Niners and looked bad on the Raiders. Shanahan did not develop Jimmy. Brock has been good since day one. And obviously, Brock has struggled a little bit more this season than we're used to. I don't think that Brock Purdy has gotten better because he already set the bar so high when he first got in. I don't think Brock has fallen off a cliff. Brock's still pretty damn good. So clear difference between those coaches. But all right, let's get to the other comments. Fonzie says, not going to lie, we both need baby Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Niners need baby Jesus and Eddie DeBartolo back as the owner. Frank says, no problem selling Raider tickets. The problem is selling those tickets to actual Raider fans. Yeah.
Yep. Winning solves those sorts of problems, but it's going to take a while.
Yeah. I think Fonzie's saying likewise. We appreciate it for, I think, happy Thanksgiving. So Atlanta had nothing to do with Kyle. I wouldn't say it had everything to do with Kyle, but I think he did play a part in that.
Yeah, I think, just like the Niners games, the issue in that game was they did not run the ball when they should have. They should have ran that ball. They should have ran that game out. And instead, Matt Ryan was out there, in shotgun, ready to pass, and then Dante Hightower comes and blows his shit up and forces the fumble or whatever happened. Just completely changed. Like, if you just run the ball and play conservatively with a 28-3 lead, you should win the game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, like the defense did not step up, but you're going against Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, prime Julian Edelman. Like, I don't know. And then I guess we kind of glorify Julian Edelman because of what he did in the playoffs and especially made that like crazy catch. But like, I don't know, man, that Patriots team obviously was able to get it done. Anytime Tom Brady's on the field, the game is not over. And, I think that Shanahan could have done a better job of managing the clock in the game to not put it in the hands of the defense, for as long of a period of time. You give Brady more and more time, he just might beat you. Let's see. Fonzie says, damn, Amin must have lost some serious dough. No, I think, Amin's really cool. I've talked to Amin. I played video games with Amin before. He's, really cool kid. I'm kind of like in the middle of like maybe both of the opinions where I don't think that Shanahan is off the hook, but I don't think that it's time to fire him, if that makes sense. There are things that clearly drive me crazy having him as our head coach, but it's like I do know that at this current moment, there's like only really one person who might be available this offseason. If he were to take the job, I would be intrigued for. Otherwise, I would just probably run it back, and then Shanahan would just have to rebuild this roster and cut his losses with this current core, which he still has to do. If he just decides we're going to run it back, same team, dude, I don't know. I don't think that I think this core missed their window last year. That's kind of how I felt last season. You can go back and look at that thumbnail and maybe take a little bit of this. When I said it on the thumbnail after the Super Bowl loss, it's all black and white. And, it's the Niners looking down, defeated after the Super Bowl. And I said it wasn't meant to be. Part of me did think, all right, that might have just been, that was it, for this team. So Will says, I wouldn't blame Kyle fully for Atlanta, but the fact that the 49ers lost the Super Bowl because the run never appeared in the second half, just like Atlanta, is annoying. Yeah, it's a trend. It's a tendency with him.
Yeah.
And I think that's looking too much at the play sheet and not looking at the game, feeling the game. You have to feel the game.
It's just common sense to run the clock out. And I don't know if that's him like trying to keep his foot on the gas pedal, but that's a lot different than, say, a Dan Campbell doing it, because at least Dan Campbell's offense runs the fucking ball to the best, better than any team in football, you know? And that's why they beat a team like Tennessee a couple weeks ago. What was it, 52 to like 14 or something, or 21? Because they can just run and run and run all over you. And every single drive, I don't know if it was the Tennessee game or the next game, but they scored on every single possession they had. That's because their offense is just that good. And I think their play caller, the Lions, yeah, and their play caller is just good, right? Their blocking scheme is good. Their offensive line, period, is good. Everything is going good for them. And I guess, I don't know, like, the weird thing about the Niners, especially this Super Bowl against the Chiefs, is like, you have Christian fucking McCaffrey. Why are you not running the ball? I mean, even the Falcons game, it just 28-3. I don't care how bad your rush offense is. Run the ball. The Patriots only have 3 timeouts. They can't call a timeout every single rush play. You can run the ball, kill those 40 seconds after the run. I don't care if you 3 and out every single time, because they practically did when they were trying to pass the ball. But you run the ball, don't fumble, don't turn over, kill the clock, you're good. That's why it's annoying, is because it's fucking obvious.
Will says Mason is running way better. He clearly looks healthier than CMC. Don't understand why we're force feeding CMC. It gets harder and harder to tolerate Kyle every week, man. I'm done with his ass, honestly. Yeah, it's like there's not just, I think, like Mike and I talked about how Shanahan looks a little bit burnt out. I think, like, as fans, we're a little bit burnt out of, like, right now, it just looks very bleak because this team looks like they just missed their window to win. And I mean, they can be back next year if they have another good draft. A lot of the players step up from this draft. Like, all right, this year they did have a good draft. I like Mustafa. I like Renardo Green. I love Pooney. I love Dominic Pooney. He has been a great addition, but they need to replace Jake Brendel. They need to upgrade Colton McKivitz. And they have to figure out what they're going to do at left guard as well, because Aaron Banks might not be coming back. Like, and then God forbid Trent Williams retires. Like, this team has serious problems looming because we don't know how long Kittle's going to be able to keep up at this high level. Debo has already fallen off a cliff. Brandon Ayuk already is. I mean, who knows what Brandon Ayuk is going to be for the rest of his career after that devastating knee injury. He tore his ACL, MCL, and his meniscus. It's bleak. The defensive coordinator has not been promising. It has been a clear downgrade. And like I said, no redeeming qualities to Shanahan's personality. He is not a guy that you can really relate to. So you're just naturally, hey man, if you're not winning games, what the hell do you even do here? Just, you look like a guy who is not happy. He doesn't look like a happy guy right now. So hopefully, I mean, he doesn't have to be, I love being the Niners head coach. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. It's just like a guy who takes pride in what he does. Takes pride in being the 49ers head coach. And maybe he does, but he has a weird way of showing it, in my opinion. That's my perspective. All right. Daniel Jones to San Diego. Please give us Herbert. Oh, God, I would love that. Give us Harbaugh, too, while we're at it. Brock Purdy has set the bar so high that everybody hates on him. Yeah, I mean, he literally came in day one, was ready to go, took advantage of his opportunity, was clearly the best quarterback that Shanahan has had under the 49ers, and has, still, that still holds true. Better than Hoyer, better than Beathard, better than Mullins, better than Garoppolo, better than Lance. It's Purdy. Paying him as the highest paid player in the NFL, that's another conversation. I don't know. Like I said, Shanahan is the coach that he hides the weaknesses of the quarterbacks rather than develops the quarterbacks to not have weaknesses or to work on their weaknesses. Will says, I'm just tired of being second place and losing the same exact way both times. Yeah, but really it's been more than 2 times because, we talk about Atlanta, but the Rams NFC Championship game, like the NFC Championship game that the 49ers did win against the Packers, they threw 8 times? They just ran the ball. Sometimes you can just run the ball. It's almost that simple. And then who did the Niners play in the NFC Championship game? Oh, the Lions. They had to throw the ball. They were down. So the Lions did not run out the clock, and they made boneheaded decisions too. So as much as I like Dan Campbell, he also makes erratic decisions, that has costed his team in big moments too. So Shanahan is not the only coach that has ever done that. Doesn't make it right for both, but yeah. Let's see here. Atlanta had prime Devontae Freeman. Yeah, he was good that season. Will says, I just don't think that we will win the championship with Kyle ever, in my opinion, but we'll see. He has made the Yorks so much money. Yeah, why would the Yorks fire Kyle Shanahan if, they're selling season tickets, they're able to bump up prices, they're in the mix every single year. And then Frank, oh my God, I almost forgot about this. How could I forget? Shit in hand. The Duke of Talentberry. I love it. One thing in Shanahan's, or to give credit to Shanahan, he's brought talent to the 49ers. And I wouldn't just send him away for nobody. Emotionally firing Shanahan isn't going to, ultimately long term, it might be the correct move for the 49ers. But if you are trying to, I don't know, just make a sound decision, have somebody in mind that you want to take over. I'll give an example. A couple years ago, the Raiders fired what's his face? Jack Del Rio. Because they had John Gruden in mind. They wanted him to be the head coach of the Raiders. Have a plan in place. The Niners could do that if they want. They could fire Shanahan and hire John Gruden. He's available. But would I take John Gruden right now over Kyle Shanahan? I like Gruden's personality more, but I think that maybe the best option for success going forward would probably be through Kyle Shanahan over John Gruden, because I don't like the way that Gruden takes over the roster and drafts players, and yeah, I just don't want that headache. But in terms of personality, Gruden's hella likable, dude.
Oh yeah.
Who cannot love John Gruden besides Raider fans who wanted to win while he was head coach? Yeah. Anyways, everybody, that's the show. I appreciate every single one of you. Fonzie, Frank, Will, Amin the Dream, Joel, and am I forgetting anybody? Even if you didn't tune in today, if you regularly comment on our streams, we really appreciate it. To everybody who is still watching right now, thank you so much for supporting the channel. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Mike, do you have any words that you want to get off your chest before we get out of here?
not sure if you mentioned Joel.
I did say Joel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you did. Okay, I think you got it right then.
Joel, big time, always in here.
Hell yeah. I got nothing. Just well, I don't want to say go Chiefs, but go Raiders in the sense of getting the first overall pick. And to everybody watching, have a happy Thanksgiving. And yeah, hopefully these holidays are better than this football season for us.
Oh, hold on. Fonzie with the last minute question. Are you guys on before Thanksgiving? No, I think we'll probably save our next podcast for. I mean, we're probably going to try to aim for next Sunday, but if anything changes, I'll put out something on YouTube, maybe like a post. So maybe keep an eye on that. But we've been pretty consistent this season of going live on Sundays, and I can also post something on Twitter as well if you want to follow our X profile at silver_gold_pod. For any updates, we will probably put it there and try to also post it on YouTube. So, yeah, otherwise, we'll catch you guys a week from now. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Have a great Thanksgiving. And I want to say Happy New Year, but that's way jumping the gun.
Got a month. But it's really weird that we are practically a month away from the end of the year.
Yeah. So also capitalize on those Black Friday deals. Yep. All right, everyone. Have a great night. I'll catch you guys next time.